Normally I give a little bit more expanded background of Radically Rural, but I really want to leave enough time for everyone's stories today. So yeah, we're just going to get right to it. And I am very excited. This is our last roundtable before our Radically Rural Summit in September, which is September 21st and 22nd this year. We are going to have an incredible fusion of ideas and energy and inspiration from so many different areas of rural life. And so I hope to see you all there. And for today, essentially, we're just going to be giving everyone that we can fit within the hour 3 minutes to talk about what's happening in their rural community. And that could be something that's really working, or it could be a challenge or a model that they would like to share, or just a story. So whatever you would like to share within that 3 minutes, we would love to hear it. And I think doing that is a great exercise to give the mic to folks who may not normally have the opportunity to share, and we can all learn from each other because we're all working toward similar goals. And so Lillian will be sharing her screen, and she'll have a timer so you can monitor your own time for the 3 minutes. When you see yourself getting close to the 3 minutes, then you can just kind of wrap up. And if you go a little under or a little over, it's okay. We just want to make sure to try to give as many people as possible the opportunity to share. So that's it. I'm very excited. Who would like to go first? I'm sensing Henry would like to. Yes, I knew it. I was feeling that energy.
All right, so basically my story is I've talked about the scenic art loop that we produce, Driftless Region's only art exclusive guide. We're representing about 1,700 square miles of Driftless Region at the moment, with 60 artists on a map that we just completed printing on 2 weeks ago, 25,000 of them. I'm looking for ideas or off the wall ideas for dispensing them. I'll tell you, the map is backed up by a monthly art tour that we do, art drive, if you will, where it's actually kicked up a lot of the artists to it gives them a reason 12 times a year to do an event that they do not have to figure out other than execute it. The intent is that the map is handed out when the artists visit. And I think we've got enough of a groundswell movement that that part may work. I'm looking for other thoughts or ideas where I could put more top spin on it, not necessarily in a conventional manner. Travel Wisconsin, who we expand into Wisconsin, they get 30,000 flyers a year to get distributed. So you can see that's totally ineffective. So I'm just looking for and hanging out on the wall for any ideas that I could see that I could maybe spin into what I'm doing. And that's pretty much my story. I'm a Main Street artist in Dubuque, Iowa. I've got my own studio and gallery on a main street. The maps are around my area with my business cards stapled in the maps where they can be handed out by hotel desks and visitors bureaus per se. And that's about it, you know.
Okay, cool. So you're looking for ideas for how to get the word out about what you're doing. Is that right?
Pretty much that's the idea, how to more effectively put it out there. And, you know, I'm more of a fan of the, if I could do it through the back door versus the front door, I kind of like that method. It seems to be more shocking once people figure it out versus, oh, you got a flyer, you know.
Right. Cool. So I think we have about a minute left in your time. Does anyone want to jump in with ideas for Henry?
Henry, I don't have any specific ideas, but I'm in Spring Green, Wisconsin. So if you want to brainstorm and we could talk about ideas sometime.
I have a Spring Green artist on the map. So yeah, we could chit chat or do something because you're close enough. You're in our realm. So that's cool.
And are you using social media right now?
Oh, big time.
Yeah. Okay.
Big time. Well, a side point, what we're finding out though, is I do this with 3 other women. Very intelligent, very smart. It just gets done. But what we're finding out is we did anticipate a certain knowledge level of social media expertise, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
What we're finding out is we really have to drop the educational level way down to basic to get the other artists on board to be more effective. I mean, our whole intent is more voices, more noise. So to get them to be effective social media people, and we look at it like, hey, if we might move you up from A to B, but we might get this person here, and we have them that have moved already from A to Z. Totally get it. So within that mix, we found out that the social media side of it is a very big weak spot that we didn't recognize, or it's actually weaker than we anticipated per se.
Okay, great. So that leads me to an idea. Now that your time at the mic is wrapping up, why don't you put your name, your organization in the chat, and then what you're looking for specifically, because folks might have, you could put your email address, so folks might have something that they could send your way or might be willing to connect further on that. And then
Sure.
If everyone would like to do that, that would be great. If you're offering something, put that in the chat, or if you're looking for something, put that in the chat along with who you are and where you're joining from. That would be awesome. Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for sharing, Henry. Who would like to go next for their 3-minute story? And again, as I said in the beginning, it could be, a struggle that you're having or something that's working really well that you want to share, whatever you want to share. The mic's yours. Trying to switch back to gallery so I can see if there's anyone raising their hand. Steph, do you have anything you want to share?
I do, actually. I was going to raise my hand because that felt more polite, but so
Go for it.
my name is Steph. My name is Steph Morrill. I work with River Valley Commons. We are in, as I mentioned, the Spring Green area. We serve 13 rural municipalities. And I've been working with a person within the community who came to me with an idea of food tourism. And one of the things that we're trying to do as an organization is help just people within the community implement ideas that they have. So she came to me and said, hey, I want to do something in the space of food tourism. So we started pulling together the people who are in food, retail producers, restaurants in our area, talked about what they might want to do. And that was last August. And there was a lot of enthusiasm, both for them to work as a community together and for there to be something more public facing. So what we've ended up with, we just launched at the beginning of May an online directory and website called savortherivervalley.org. It features, as of right now, like 32 different food people in our area. And the intent is not just to get the word out about them, but to build this community of support among them. So they're doing things like skill sharing. They want to have an exchange board for stuff and staff. And so it's been really successful, and we'll be launching events in July, and a certain percentage of that will go back to Savor as an entity so that they'll be able to continue their work and create more, publicity materials and things like that. So that's my story.
That is really cool. And I also, you're nearby, right? You said you're in Vermont, or where are you?
Oh. I'm in Wisconsin. I'm in Spring Green, Wisconsin.
Darn, I was going to say you should join this event we're having next week, which is we have 5 food businesses that are pitching and like telling the community about their food businesses, and they're actually, one of them is going to win $5,000. So, but kind of a part of very similar that we're trying to connect kind of the the food and farm industry in our area and kind of make it more cohesive. So that is really cool to hear that that's
Yeah.
happening in your area. And I want to keep following that and see how it's going. Like,
Yeah.
keep coming back and telling us how it's going.
Okay. Well, yeah, one of the thing with the events that we're doing, we're asking them to partner, right? So if it's a retail or restaurant, we want them partnering with the producer so that we're kind of exposing multiple people at one time. And that's been really well received. They're so excited. I mean, we're already talking about as a group next year trying to bring in workers for the summertime because we're primarily a tourist area in the summer. They're all super short staffed. So I think there's so much synergy to be able to find among this group that I'm really, really excited. The public facing part is super cool and I'm grateful for that, but I'm really way more excited about what's happening behind the scenes within this group. So.
Right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that.
Could I just make a comment about what Steph just said?
Yes.
I'm Nancy Jost. I work for West Central Initiative, which is a small rural community foundation in Minnesota. And something that our county just did is put together this little card that had all the thrift stores on it. And you could go from one town to the next, and then you get your card marked off. And if you got 6 of them, then you're in a drawing. And not only did, so my friend and I love to go thrift store shopping, but not only did we go to the thrift stores, then we went to the other places in town. We ate lunch at a cute little coffee shop, and I just thought it was such a cool idea to get people interested in doing something like that. And if they think they're going to win a $25 gift card somewhere, it's really a fun way, I think, to highlight our small rural communities.
I love that, Nancy. And I'm also a big thrifter. Little known fact about me, I usually have really intense nightmares, but if I do have good dreams, it's usually me thrift store shopping alone without children. It's like I'm looking through the clothes and no one is bothering me. Awesome. All right. Who would like to go next? Tell us your story. I feel like I want to hear from Dana. I feel like Dana has something to say. I could be wrong.
Hi, y'all.
Hi.
Sorry, I was just a little late jumping in. So I'm over here in sort of central Texas, and I work in a county that's considered a frontier county. So there's like a population of 3,300, less than 6 persons per square mile. I'm looking at all of those food places on your link there, Steph, and I'm like, yeah, I want them all in central Texas. Can we just do that? But one of the things that we recently started working with was thinking about how we can serve the families that are least served, sorry, by listening to those that are living the experience. And so I work for an operating foundation, and so we operate inside the county, but we've been doing this community development work for about 5 years now. And so we started working with grandparents raising grandchildren. And we began just by giving them an opportunity to be in the same room together to kind of learn about what resources they're looking for, what could help them in their journey. And then as we continued through, we've been doing this about a year now, I guess. And as we continued through, the service organizations that have been supporting them are now working as a collectively with the grandparents in leadership with them. And so we have grandparents that are helping us to determine what does it look like for grandparents to raise their grandchildren in a healthy community. And so we know that when we design solutions for the smallest group, that the whole community benefits. The easiest example is when we think about the design that you see for folks that are maneuvering in wheelchairs. Any mother with a stroller is really grateful for all of those ramps, right? Like, we know that the community is healthier because of the design that's happened for this one small part of the community. So as we design for our grandparents, the community itself is beginning to be healthier as we brought them together to just do a community walk together in a safe place with no dogs chasing them. We had over 100 people participate, and they're still participating as they did their walk across Texas. But those are the things that I would share, is just design for those that are living the experience, and the whole community will benefit.
I absolutely love that. Thank you so much for sharing. I hope I didn't miss this. I've got some things going on behind the scenes, but how did you get started? Like what was the initiator?
So we actually applied for a grant with a large organization here in Texas called Methodist Healthcare Ministries, and they were wanting to do more place-based work. And so we applied for like phase 1, and they said, okay, this is sort of the points that you need to go through. You know, what part of the community do you want to work with? What difference do you want to make in the community? And who do you know that's living in the community, living these experiences that you can bring alongside with you as leaders in that work? And so they funded us for about 6 months. And then we've been able to continue that program internally with our foundation, just to continue that work.
That's awesome. Great. All right, who's next? Who would like to share? I know Nancy's always got a lot of stuff cooking over there in West Central Minnesota.
Well, I did not come prepared for this, but and sorry, I had my camera off because I was eating lunch. But
no worries.
I was thinking of something really fun, and I think you know, sometimes as advocates or people who work with families, we take really a serious sort of approach, and we do too, but sometimes it's fun just to do fun things. And so I'll get this book that we just published a book, and it's called Let's Go, and it's 10 adventures through our region. And our region has 9 counties and the White Earth Nation. And each county and White Earth has 2 pages. This one happens to be White Earth, and it's for families. So every family in our region gets a free book. If they have children 0 to 5, they're going to get this free book or have already gotten it. And then they can go to the places in their county or other counties that are free and mostly outdoors. So we're getting people to do fun things, and with the gas prices as they are, they don't have to travel too far to go to somewhere free and fun. And it's just a way for families to really get out in nature, do fun things. So that is a project that we are in the midst of right now. So I do like to add fun into our serious work.
Absolutely. I completely agree. If you don't, it's not sustainable if you are sprinting all the time. You know, you've got to have that relief in there that can propel you forward. So I remember the first time you told me about that book, I was like, it's everything. It's getting kids outside. It's getting them connected with the community and telling stories and history and play, you know, having that sense of place. It's so beautiful. And thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. It was one of the most fun projects we've ever done. And like I said, we do a lot of serious projects, but I think families also really appreciate sometimes when we do things for them that are just for fun, because a lot of times when you're in a family that's struggling or a community that's struggling, fun isn't always one of those things you get to do every day. So
definitely. Awesome. Beth, do you want to share? You dropped something in the chat and it looks really interesting. I'd love to hear a little more about it if you'd like to share.
I did. Am I, oh, sorry, here, let me take my little thing off here. Sorry, oh, I'm sorry if I'm not professionally dressed.
This is Zoom world. You can eat,
Oh,
you can wear whatever you want.
okay.
It's fine.
So what makes these people unique is not only did they start this garden, but they did it in connection, and I'm sorry I left this part out in the chat, but they did it in connection with their local government. And it was a total synergistic moment here where a local group of nonprofit volunteers were gardening. They needed another location. The librarian at the town library just received approval to develop property behind the library. She didn't know what to do. Just, unbelievable moment. They connected, and the town council said yes. So now the town council, the town of Huachuca City, now has another asset in its toolkit, if you will, for the town. And this is a town asset. And the big unique piece here is that the town council has authorized the use of town water for this garden, recognizing that it's not a pick your own. This is not something that people can wander through and, hey, look at the beautiful tomatoes that are growing. And there's no space there for public gardening. This is only for two things. It's to produce food in a food desert for folks who need it. And number two, they're working on the teaching component. There is a elementary school that is walking distance 4 minutes from the garden. It's K through 8, 300 students. And they have put a lot of effort into thinking, how can we kind of grow, if you will, my corny line here, but how can they grow the next generation of volunteers? And how can they get these kids to understand from, this young age group of, hey, this is where your food comes from. And also the other component that they're really, really harping on is the fact that we're in a desert, and how can we do this and do this successfully in a limited water environment? And to get everybody in the community, not just the kids, but even folks who are not receiving the free vegetables, how can we get everyone to start thinking about growing in our backyard, even with just 1 or 2 pots, but how can we think about water in this environment? So they, as I wrote there, 9,000 pounds of vegetables with, and I left this part out, but it is literally a handful, which seems mind-blowing, but it is literally a handful of volunteers who, as they gently like to say, they are seasoned volunteers. I will not mention anyone's ages, but they all incredibly, no one is from Arizona. They all have years of gardening experience and all just came here either for retirement or because jobs brought them here. So just, unbelievable how things work out. And it is usually the case with most of these things. It was the vision of one person. One person just put a post on Facebook 5 years ago and said, hey, you know what? I want to do something. I don't know anything about gardening, but can anybody help me? It was basically the genesis of her post there. And other people read it and said, yeah, okay. I don't know who you are, but sure. Okay. My name is Tom and I'll help you. And someone else jumped in. Hey, I'm Sue. I don't know you. And literally, because I talked to you, oh, did you all know her? They said, nope, we didn't even know Holly. We were just replying to this person, Holly, who wanted to start a garden. I said, holy, literally it's one person can make a difference. Sounds corny, but that's indeed what happened 9,000 pounds of vegetables later. So sorry, it's just amazing. So
that is incredible. It's absolutely incredible. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, they are amazing. And I'm sorry, can I just
yes
about water. The other thing they did was the garden that was given to them, the land was given to them, was coming off, there was a slope that was coming down from the library parking lot. So water runoff was directed long before they gave this property, the garden, to this area, which is great. Okay, would have washed out the garden. So they had a nonprofit come in and say, hey, can you please look at the flow of the water? Can you look at the flow of the land and how are we doing this? And they created 14 in-ground water basins.
Wow.
And so all of this water is going back into the water table. So that's their kind of justification, if you will. They're saying, yeah, hey, we are taking the town's water out of the spigot, but look, when we get the monsoons here in Arizona, the water in 14 water basins is seeping right back down into the water table. So, which I should note, they made 14 6-foot water basins with the help of the soldiers from Fort Huachuca. I have to give them a nod down the street here. So we're lucky in so many ways that we just happen to be near a military base. Yeah.
Wow.
Folks that can do all that. Yeah. So but again, one person stepping up saying, I think I would like to change this. Wow.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So
It's
anyway.
such a beautiful coming together of so many pieces of your society. And I talked about this on a podcast once, like, I just want people to know, easy isn't the right word, but how doable it is to do things. It's like, for me, so many of the things that I've initiated, or I know other people as well, just started with like Googling something. It's like you're kind of going about your crazy busy life and this idea just keeps floating around in your head. And then eventually you're like, you have a second one day, you're waiting in line for something and you're like, I'm just going to Google it. That's the first step. And then, you reach out to one person and then maybe a couple weeks later you do something else. And before you know it, you have this momentum and you start making connections. And that's what we're doing today is all about, is this momentum and making connections. I was just meeting with, we have the Canadian Center for Rural Creativity came to Radically Rural, the summit last year virtually, and we've been connected ever since. And they ping us when they need something, we reach out to them if we need something. It's just been a wonderful mutual relationship. And yesterday we were meeting to help them give some advice on the hybrid aspect of the summit that they're going to be having in Blythe, Ontario in October. And he just offhandedly mentioned a project that they're working on they happen to get connected with this app developer, and they're also trying to solve their rural housing crisis. And so those two things are coming together with like a community game that's going to help solve the housing crisis. And this is no one's full-time job. This is no one's, it just came out of this idea in a conversation, and now they're rolling it forward. And I'm like, this could work for so many rural communities. Like, tell us about how it's going and, let us know. So I absolutely agree with you that it's just unbelievable how one idea whose time has come can just come to life and leave someone's body and exist in the world with support and help and all of that. That's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that. And we have one question. Dana says, did you have any community resistance?
You know what? I had asked about that because this got started a year before I moved out here. And I wanted to just kind of understand the history of that. And interestingly enough, I left this part out, but at the same time, the town council had agreed to give them the land. The town also raised the water rates for individual homeowners. And I said, oh my gosh, but no, people understood. So the short answer was no. The people understood that, hey, actually, this is a good thing. We have no grocery store. We don't have a grocery store. There is no produce. People who are in very, very limited means, many don't even own their own car, can't get 10 miles on the road. So yeah, everyone is behind this. They are 100% behind it. And how it is taken off is, but again, like you said, Jillian, this one woman just posting this thing, and the land was there, right? The land was there all along. It would have been just continue to be vacant if this woman never spoke up and said, does anybody want to help me do this garden thing?
Yeah.
And
I love it.
Amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I invited Kristen Powers to join us today because her rural work is some of my favorite that I've encountered. And we've had her organization, Benevolence Farm, on for their own roundtable, which we do have a recording of on our website. But when I thought Rural Story Hour, what rural stories need to be told, this one just came to mind. So Kristen, I'd love to give you some time to give us an overview of what you do and some updates on how it's going.
Sure. Thank you. So, hi, everyone. I'm Kristen Powers. I use she, her, aya pronouns, and I am the executive director of Benevolence Farm in Graham, North Carolina. We're in the central Piedmont region. Now I'll spend like 10 seconds, hopefully, flipping around my camera so you can kind of see I'm at Benevolence Farm right now, and our like farm area is more over there. But we are a nonprofit social enterprise that houses and employs formerly incarcerated women returning to rural communities. So we women come home to our 3-bedroom house behind me to immediately we go to the prison, pick them up and bring them home, and then they are immediately employed in our farm enterprise. And our farm enterprise is predominantly herbs and flowers that are then infused into body care products that we do sell nationally, and all those earnings and profits go back into the living wage program for the women here. So we have a lot going on. Like, we're really trying to redefine what reentry means for women in rural communities. The rate of incarceration of women has risen 800% since the inception of the war on drugs, and yet the comparable services that are gender responsive and gender informed are still practically non-existent in a lot of areas, especially in resource sparse or more isolated communities. So we have a lot going on. We do a lot with housing right now, especially I think nationwide, we're experiencing a housing crisis. And for us, we're also like in some communities, in rural communities that surround us, like there are sometimes only 30 houses even for sale in a community of like 100,000 people. So we're really struggling with that with like a lot of people. So we just opened a second location to try to help alleviate some of that in our wait list. But I think the big thing, like just when I was thinking of maybe not so much challenges, but just things we're thinking of right now as we enter into the kind of like the summer doldrums here in the South, because it's too hot to do anything. It's like 99 degrees right now, why I'm a little sweaty, but and very humid too. So, no one wants to go out, do activities or stuff. So we're trying to like think how to be creative about fundraising, how to do events to build community, how we build events for our residents who do have some like restrictions and considerations. So we are constantly trying to figure out how to partner with small businesses and continue to grow our fan base and donor base and our body care product line customers. And I will put our general link in the chat. And I think that's time.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And the soap in my shower right now is from Benevolence Farm, and it works great. So
Awesome.
Awesome. Does anyone have questions for Kristen or thoughts? All right. So Kristen, I'm curious, have you heard of any other communities doing something similar to what you're doing? Like, are you connected with a wider sort of network?
So we are part of 2 different nationwide networks. One, so as far as I know, we're the only one that combines employment and housing. A lot of places are just housing, and then they have employment resources. But A New Way of Life in Los Angeles is kind of the original model of this. It was opened by Susan Burton, who's formerly incarcerated. She has a book, Becoming Miss Burton, which is a great summer read. And they have a safe housing network for houses that are housing people who are women specifically who are formerly incarcerated. And then there's Thistle Farms, which is a little bit of a misnomer. They don't have any farms, but they are similar in mission, and they do housing, and they actually do have an employment side as well. They also a body care program, but their audience is more trafficking survivors and survivors of different forms of abuse. And so we're part of their sisterhood network, and they're in Nashville. And so some partners from both networks are in rural communities, but I think as far as I know, we're the only rural community that's doing both the housing and employment for women coming out of prison.
Awesome. Great. Thanks again for sharing. All right. So Megan said she's just listening in today, and Rick might be the same. Rick, do you have anything you want to share, or Nancy Meyer? I'm trying to think who else hasn't shared. I have things I can share too if we run out. Okay. April, anything you want to share? I know I didn't want to interrupt if you were driving or something.
No. I was actually trying to look something up. I think first of all, I'm just really, it encourages and inspires me to hear what you guys are doing in your communities. Right now, I live in Atlanta, so it's all city life for me. But it's been a good bit of time in Columbia, South Carolina, working with juvenile detention and working with those families who live, out in the middle of nowhere. So when when a young man or young woman would go home, what are we going to do for this child? What are we going to do for their family? So I think I would say I just like to see the collaboration and just all the unique ways that we can really invest in the lives of people. Being in Atlanta almost 3 years, we have some interesting and collaborative neighborhood things that we do. For example, there are little stations set up now and more on the west side of the city where they're it's literally just a refrigerator and grab if you need stuff. There's a pantry and it's kind of set up near spaces, whether it's a community center or maybe a restaurant who's supporting it. There's like book drives. You can donate books and encourage people to read. Kids who don't have access to a library or the transportation not to get there, where you can just, you're walking along the belt line or in your neighborhood and you can just open it and grab a book. So I think when you think of rural versus city, it may look different, but all these foundational things are so similar. And just speaking to what a lot of you are saying, it's not difficult to get together and get things done. So it just excites me. I'm looking for places here to volunteer. And so definitely I'll put my information in. I love dreaming things up. I used to work in nonprofit as well in my younger years. So it's still near and dear to my heart. So I just want to commend all of you for what you're doing and how you're changing and, changing lives and impacting your communities. It's amazing.
Thank you, April. I love the suggestion or the just recounting that approach to having free resources out there for folks, and they don't have to kind of be put in the spotlight when trying to access something. They can just get it if they need it and be trusted as a human being to know if they need something, which I think is really beautiful. I've noticed recently that on our main street, outside of a pawn shop, that the owner of this pawn shop has just been amazing for the community, but there is like a kind of a canned foods just free for whoever needs it, which I think is really, really great. Well, thank you for sharing that, April. So I'll share a few things going on in our area, and because we had so many people register, I didn't expect to have time to share. So I'm like hoping that I, don't hang up on this call and think like, oh, I didn't share about the coolest thing ever. But so one thing, no, oh my gosh, okay, there really is. There's two things I'm going to share. So one I'll start with because it was like the first thing that we were introduced to when we moved to rural New Hampshire. We had moved from, I've lived all over, but the last place we lived was Virginia before we moved here. And we kept having people tell us about pizza night. You need to go to pizza night. And I didn't really think much about it, but the more people told me this, I was like, okay, I need to look into this. And so what it is there's this bakery called Orchard Hill Bakery, and it's out in the middle. I mean, it takes at least 30 minutes to drive there, I think, from Keene, even further from Brattleboro. It's really out there in the middle of rural rolling hills and farms and all of that. And basically every Tuesday night during the summer, probably several hundred people come to this bakery, and there's a pavilion that was built as a volunteer project by the company that we moved here for, actually, Bensonwood timber frame homes. And so they did this volunteer project, and they have this big pavilion, and they have a wood fire oven, and the folks who come, they purchase however many crusts they want, and they go and roll them out themselves. There's cheese and sauce already there, and then you bring your own toppings. And there's also a garden you can walk through that has toppings you can pick right there. There's people bring, thanks Dana, thanks for joining. People bring, they leave their extra toppings there for anyone who wants them. And then everyone just like spreads out in the yard with blankets. There's live music. It's so amazing. And the cool thing is the bakery has a different organization that they support every Tuesday with the proceeds. So it could be a school, it could be a nonprofit, it could be, various different things that they support, but it's really such a cool community experience. Everyone coming together, making their pizza together, just sitting out in the yard, hanging out. And it's something that I mean, especially the first couple summers we lived here, that was like our family, that was like our community, and just something to look forward to every single week. So that's something that I love, because it's connecting people together, and it's also, you know, helping to raise funds for organizations, and definitely delicious pizza. So that's one. Lillian, you didn't do the timer for me. I don't know how much time I have.
I thought you were just filling time.
Yeah.
I can start a timer for
All right,
you.
so I'll keep going. I'll tell a little bit more, and then we'll just open it up to any further discussion or questions that folks have. So that's, oh, and the cool thing is the Hannah Grimes Center, the organization that I work for, is going to be the recipient of the funding from one of the ones in July, which is exciting. And then of course, you know, folks from the organization who are being supported, they're the volunteers that night. So it's kind of all hands on deck. It's a lot of fun. Another one is that in one of the things that our center does, the Hannah Grimes Center for Entrepreneurship, we have community idea jams, and it's kind of like this, but in person. And we have food and drinks, and we give everyone 1 minute at the mic to like say your idea, whatever it is. And actually, that's what was a big part of how Radically Rural got started, because someone came up there and just said, like, I have this idea that for small communities that don't have big spaces to hold conferences, but they still want that, they should just use their whole downtown as a conference center, spread out the sessions at different, you know, smaller venues, and get people like out and milling around downtown, and so on and so forth. And that's actually what Radically Rural is now, and what we do. And it came out of a community idea jam like that. So we're having another one June 30th, where we're partnering with Southwest Region Planning Commission and some other folks in the community who are they're working on our economic development strategy for our region. And they're like, what better place to get information than directly from the people in the community who have ideas and want to see certain things happen. So Beth, it might be like, you know, one person gets up at the mic and says something, and who knows who in the crowd latches onto that and takes that idea to the next stage. And so that's something that I have really appreciated about what we do. And that's kind of similar to what I was hoping to recreate here as well, as just this opportunity, because structured talks are wonderful and we get lots of information from them, but I also think you never know what you're going to hear when you just give folks the opportunity to speak. Damaris, I think I didn't mention you earlier. Is there anything you'd like to share about anything that's happening in Gilsum?
I didn't really prepare anything, so I'm mostly just listening to people. Thanks.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Well, any questions, thoughts? Anyone want to dig in any deeper to what Henry or Nancy or anyone else talked about? Any questions? All right. And so Lillian, are we ready to do the drawing? We're going to give a free ticket to Radically Rural away. And if you want like 100 times the coolness and energy and ideas and everything that we had today, you should definitely come to Radically Rural, either virtually or in person. And so, all right, go for it, Lillian. Thanks, Rick.
Alrighty.
Damaris!
Yay.
Well, she was
Awesome.
already going to get a free ticket because she's a board member. So, so maybe we'll.
You
maybe
can give
we'll,
it to someone else if you want.
we'll roll again, or you can just give it to. Yeah, I'll let you decide, Damaris. But awesome. Well, thank you all for being here. And yeah, so this is our last roundtable until the summit, because we're going to be busy bees getting ready for it. But I hope to see you all there, either in person or virtually. And I hope everyone has a great day. Bye.